Translating Perl to assembly language. In this video, we will see how to translate Perl assignment and arithmetic code into assembly language code. It may be helpful if you download the Machine Language Instructions PDF from Canvas, so you have that in front of you as we proceed. In the first part of the video, we will look at the same mnemonics as we described in the prior video. Load, store, clear, add, increment, subtract, decrement, in, out, and halt. To convert the standard in Perl command, we are going to use the in mnemonic. So our command will be in assembly language. And we're looking at variable C. And we're saying for our code, C is at 102. So 102 becomes the operand. And that's it. Standard in is the in command. For the print command, we'll be using the mnemonic out. So our line of code will be out. And since the variable that we're looking to print is B is 101, so our operand will be 101. So out 101 is the equivalent for print B. Addition. We're going to start off with a load. We're then going to use an add, and lastly a store. So the first command is we want to have the variable A. A is in location 100. So we're going to do a load 100. That will take whatever is in address 100 and store it in the register. And we want to add B. So we're going to use the add assembly language command. B is in address 101. So add 101. And lastly, we want to store it in C. So store, and C is in 102. 102. So those three lines of code gives us the equivalent of this one line of Perl. Load A, add B, store it back in C. Subtraction. Very similar. We're going to do a load, a subtract, and then a store. So the first thing we want to do is load C. C is in location 102. Load 102. Next, we want to subtract B. So our assembly language will be subtract, and B is in 101. So subtract 101. And lastly, we want to take that result and store it back into D. So store, and D is at location 103. So load 102, subtract 101, store 103. Those three lines are the equivalent of this one line of Perl code. Incrementing by 1. If we have a variable that we want to increment by 1, that being we've got the same variable on both sides, we will use the increment command. we'll enter the mnemonic, INC. For this code, we're using the variable $D. $D is in 103. So our operand will be 103. This one line of code is the same as this one line of Perl. Notice we did not use either store or load. Increment and decrement work directly on the contents of the address specified. We do not load into the register, and we do not store back from the register. Let's try adding one to C. So what we're going to do is a little bit different than the others. We're going to take C, put it in the register, store it into D, and then add one to it. So, load, C is at location 102, so that puts C into the register, the value of C into the register. We're then going to store that value from the register into 103. So D now has the same value as C. Now that we're done, we'll then increment 103. If we did an increment of 102, that would have changed C. And in Perl, this line of code does not change C. So we needed to load C, store it into D, and then incrementing D itself. Subtracting 1. Since we're decrementing A on both sides, we just need the decrement command. Write down DEC for decrement. A is in location 100. And that one line of code is the equivalent of this one line of Perl. Subtract 1. Since we've got B on one side and A on the other, we're going to need to load A first into the register, store it into B, and then subtract. So load A is load 100. Putting it into B is store 101 for B. And lastly, we're going to decrement B 101. These three lines of assembly code are the equivalent of this. Load A, store A into B, and lastly decrement B. We're going to load A into the register, subtracts the value of C from it, and then add D. Lastly, we'll store it back into B. So A is at location 100, so load 100, subtract C, C is at 102, add D, which is at 103, and lastly, store the result into $B. So store into 101. Load A, subtract C, add D, and put it back into B. That's the end of translating Perl to assembly language, part 1. Next up, translating Perl to assembly language, part 2, where we will go over how to construct if-then-else statements. If you have any questions or concerns, send me an email, come to my virtual office hours, reach out to me one way or another. Be well.